Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of the Big at the Back podcast. We made it to 10 episodes. I'm here. My name is Tom, and as usual, I'm here with Matt. Matt, how are you?
I am pretty good, I think. It's still quite early in the morning, so we'll figure out how I'm feeling as the episode goes on and if I stay alive for most of it. But I've just about recovered from our weekend debauchery at our friend's wedding. Are you 100% yet?
No, I'm sure you can probably hear my voice is a little strained, but we press on. As it's episode 10, I think it's finally time to break out the sexy Madden glasses.
Tom, I don't know if you can do this. I don't think porn's allowed on YouTube.
It basically turns me from Clark Kent to Superman. I'm just the opposite. One, I become sexy. So, as I'm now sexy Tom, and I'm here with the sexy glasses, I think it's a good time to start talking. I'll take them off there anyway.
Sexy Tom.
This is great content for podcasters. Anyone listening, you must love this. So we've got quite a bit to talk about today. As we've already looked over the game week 30, today is going to be purely focused on 31 and what the plans are. So we are going to go through all of the fixtures for 31, then look beyond that, seeing what we can do chip-wise, what our individual strategies are, and how we should be approaching the last 8 game weeks of the season. So let's start by digging into the games that are going on. And we start with an early kickoff that completely defies the rules because it's Liverpool versus Watford, Liverpool at home. So A, you should never captain the early kickoff. B, you should always captain Mo Salah. Matt, what are your thoughts?
It's like the unstoppable force and the immovable object, isn't it? Like which one takes precedent? But I think you've got to, unless you're trying to come up with something different and trying to close a gap, and you're worried about the curse of the early kickoff, I think you've just got a captain Salah, haven't you? I think his stats overall against Watford are very good. I think he's doubled in about 4 of his last 6. Double point hauled in 4 of his last 6 fixtures against Watford. So you'd be crazy not to. I think they look poor defensively. Liverpool obviously look very impressive going forward. It's just a no-brainer for me to captain Salah.
Yeah, and we'll have a proper in-depth captain discussion a little bit later because while Salah's the obvious choice, he's not the only choice, I feel.
No.
If you look at the players you could have coming into this fixture run, I think Liverpool are a great team to own. I think Trent and Salah, everyone's going to own them. I know you've had a lot of success owning Robertson, but I actually think there's value in other areas as well for Liverpool. I think Diaz at about 8.1 million is a really good midfield option. And I was looking at it. Joel Matip has started, I think, 9 of the last 10 games as centre-back. Now, he's probably not going to get attacking return. Well, he did last week, so who knows? But he's probably not going to get any attacking returns. But as a potential safety option at 4.9 million playing for Liverpool, I would probably categorise him similarly to Rudiger. His attacking stats for the season aren't far off. I think he's got 1 less assist and 1 less goal than Rudiger for the season. For $1 million, 1.2 cheaper, I think that's certainly an option to consider.
Definitely, like you say, he's pretty much nailed on now. So I can't see that he's going to be dropped anytime soon. Him and Van Dijk have made that centre-back pair in their own. So if you don't already own 3 Liverpool, for example, which a lot of people already will, whether that be Salah, Trent and maybe Robertson, maybe Diaz, maybe Jota, still people will have in, potentially even Mane with the run that he's been on lately. Matip, like you say, he's sort of a value entry into Liverpool's defence. So there's no reason you should be overlooking someone like him. What I must say is I was surprised this morning to wake up and see that Trent dropped in price overnight.
I've seen lots of people selling him with the potential industry to fund move to Robertson and free up 5 million or so.
I was going to say it sounds like people have seen him flagged and panicked.
I also think it's people trying to be too clever. It's one of those things where it's like the Salah triple captaincy. Don't try and be too clever. Just keep it simple. Don't be an idiot. Keep Trent on your side. These next 8 game weeks, he's going to be the top scoring defender. Let's be honest with ourselves. I think you're absolutely.
Oh, that sounds like a bet.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. So let's do this now. Trent is going to be the top scoring defender between now and the end of the season. Who would your pick be?
I could throw in, like, could be Robertson. There's always obviously potential for a Reece James, but obviously it depends on his fitness levels. You could even argue someone like Cancelo, but obviously dependent on their fixtures and rotation. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go bold. I'm going to take Reece James.
I like it. He's got a really high ceiling, but the problem is he can just as easily get you 2 points. Whereas I think Trent is a solid 8, 9, 12, 6 kind of player. He'll be very consistent. So, yeah, I'm happy to take that bet. New big at the back bet of tenner again?
Yep, tenner again between now and the end of the season.
Awesome. What we did last time was just put the tenner on advertising our last podcast to see if it made any impact. I don't know if it did or not. But, yeah, we'll do that again. Tenner between now and the end of the season, Trent and Reece James. Cool. That may impact my transfer plans then.
It's the 2 England right backs as well. So
don't forget about Ireland. Oh no, Trippier's Walker's a goalkeeper. So we shouldn't be talking about him.
Wan-Bissaka.
Let's move on to Watford. So I say let's move on to Watford. I am never going near Josh King ever again in my life. That hurt me. And I just can't look at Watford. Defensively, I don't really see anything there. Attacking-wise, maybe there's something to be said for Ismaila Sarr in the run-in as a differential. I think could be a really high-risk, high-reward option. Denny, again, maybe, but I don't think he's quite hit the form of early season. So what are your thoughts on Watford at the moment?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Cucho's sort of come in the last few weeks and obviously bagged a couple of goals. So he's sort of, I think, got 11 and 12 in 2 weeks in a row. But when 2 of your next 4 fixtures are Liverpool and Man City, I'm not going anywhere near you. So especially where they are in the league, they're struggling. Sarr is the only one you could potentially look at because he is a budget midfielder. But there's so many options in the midfield at the moment. What you're really looking for is budget strikers that are getting some returns, which obviously has been a struggle for everyone all season. So I'm not touching Watford with a barge pole, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think, they do have Liverpool and City both away as 2 of their next 6, but the other 4 are all home matches against Leeds, Brentford, Burnley, Palace away. So the other matches aren't bad, but I'm struggling to justify Sarr over other budget midfielders, and forwards, they're just not really delivering at the moment. So I'm in agreement with you there.
Yeah, I think there's much more options. Like you say, some of those fixtures are all right. But they're the sort of games that could be cagey affairs when you imagine like 3 of those 4 are potentially relegation battles. So I wouldn't. They're the sort of games that can turn on a coin flip. So no, not for me.
Fair enough. Next game to talk about is Brighton versus Norwich. Now, I'm struggling to be enthusiastic about this match, being completely honest. So I'll let you start off with your thoughts.
It's about as boring a football match as you could hope for, really, isn't it? It screams like a scrappy 0-0, 1-0, probably be a 3-0 now or something, like an absolute thriller. But, excuse me, I'd be looking at Brighton defensive assets. Obviously, a lot of people will target Norwich games, so you could argue the likes of Cucurella or Dunk or someone like that. But it's just not a game I have any interest in. So that alone is reason enough for me to not want any players from either team. What about you?
Yeah, it just doesn't seem very fun. Brighton at home, terrible, versus Norwich, terrible. It is like the stoppable force meeting a movable object. Even if you look at their assets, Brighton's next matches after Norwich are Arsenal, Tottenham and Man City. Norwich, I just don't think are investable at all. So I don't think there's much to say either short-term or long-term for either of these teams.
No, like you say, that Brighton, that might be one of the worst double game weeks in FPL history, where they face Tottenham and Man City both away from home. So I don't think we'll be getting near either of them.
Yeah, absolutely brutal. Well, speaking of Man City, their next match is away to Burnley. So Burnley we'll touch on because that's a really interesting conversation to have. But Man City, they've got Burnley, then they've got Liverpool. But then it's Brighton, Watford, Leeds, Newcastle, West Ham. So West Ham at the end will be a pushover. The rest of them may be touch and go. But Man City looks like their fixture run after that Liverpool match gets very appealing. So from 33 onwards, I know they've got a single when everyone else doubles, but longer term, over those 5 weeks, I think really attractive. So if you've got a Cancelo, I think he's definitely a hold. And I'll probably, after 33, be looking to bring in at least one more City player. Struggling to think of who at the moment, considering they've got the FA Cup, they've got the Champions League. What are your thoughts on City, and who would you be targeting if you're looking at it post 33?
I definitely agree with you about looking at bringing more City assets in. Obviously, Cancelo's in there already for me, so he's staying. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. But the other options is always you've got the worry of roulette, haven't you? So I always like the look of Mahrez, but I always feel whenever I get him in, he does nothing. But then as soon as I take him out, he starts scoring. Obviously, Sterling's been in and out of the side. You've got Foden, you've got Grealish, De Bruyne, but obviously he's a big premium midfielder. So it depends if you've got the funds for him, which with the defensive line I have, I can't really afford to get De Bruyne in when I've already got Salah. So it's a really tricky one. Like you say, that West Ham game at the end of the season will be a pushover because we'll probably be focusing on the Europa League final. So,
yeah, I really maybe Foden, but he's on and out of the squad. I think Jack Grealish could be a really fun pick as well as a differential because, like you, I've been burned too many times by Mahrez. Sterling, I'm never sure if he's starting or not. De Bruyne, I just can't afford, considering I've got Kane and a big at the back line as well. So Foden seems like a potential expensive midfielder option that I could buy, or even Grealish.
It's one of those ones. It's like see the lineups over the next few weeks and then sort of make a decision from then. But even then, it's Pep, so you never know from week to week, do you?
I was going to say game week 32 coming up, and we don't have a clue what his lineup is. So yeah, like that. Let's talk about Burnley.
Do we have to?
We do.
I can't do this again.
They've got a double this week. And that double is, they're against Man City, but they're also against Everton. So we spoke about Salah captain earlier, but is there something to say for Weghorst captain? Can I tempt you?
No, there's not. Just don't. No, I can't do this. Not again. For me, I probably will be bringing Weghorst in, but purely on the basis that I've got Jimenez, so I need to get rid of him, really. I have got other thoughts about who I could bring in for him, which I will get onto shortly. But Weghorst obviously seems the most likely option. It's the template pick for this week. He doubles this week and he doubles in 33. So it just seems to be the obvious pick. But I'm not excited about it.
And they've got Norwich in between those two doubles as well. And they've got, I think, one other game yet to be arranged, or maybe two. But
yeah, I think so.
Have loads of games to play. Weghorst should have got more goals than he has. Is there anything to be said for? I think Max Cornet could be a really fun pick. His goals have kind of dried up. But if you look at the run of Everton, Norwich, West Ham, Southampton, Wolves, Watford, he could be a really fun pick during the run-in.
Again, I've been spurned by him in their last double, so it's still very fresh in my memory. It's hard to get over. McNeil as well is another potential pick that you could argue to throw in there. And then people are always going to look at them defensively as well. So could you even like Pope potentially if you want a goalkeeper that's going to double a couple of times and have favourable fixtures. And then you've obviously got your likes of me and Tarkowski in there as well. So there's plenty of options. I hate that I'm talking myself into this. Please stop me.
I want to see it happen. You've also got people like Taylor who are 4.4, so really cheap enablers. So potential people. Well, there's Taylor, and I think who's the other one at Burnley?
You got it depends who's going to play on the other side. Really, you got Peters has been playing a bit. I think he's the one that's been in. I don't even know recently. To be honest with you, they sort of he was definitely playing in their last double because a lot of people brought him in then. I think they've had a lot of rotation and injuries as well. So I don't know. Please just.
I think Nick.
I'd love for them to haul.
I think Nick Pope for me is too expensive for a goalkeeper. I don't want to spend 5.4 on a goalkeeper. Like, just that's
no, I agree with that. But
no
especially seeing as my other two keepers that I've got are Sarr and Ramsdale, and are both good selections this year, and they're both cheaper. So
yeah, and if you look at Burnley, aren't going to keep many clean sheets. Sorry, they're 18th of the league. They're not a team you buy for clean sheets. So I think Pope, for me, is an avoid. The defenders, I think, potentially could be an option moving forward for the run-in.
And the other thing that just to throw out there, Burnley have lost their last 3 games without scoring a goal, and they've conceded in those games. They've conceded 8 goals. Admittedly, 4 of those were against Chelsea, but the other 2 were a 2-0 loss to Leicester, who aren't the greatest side at the moment, and a 2-0 loss to Brentford as well. So,
well, we'll come on to Leicester in a minute because I think that warrants a lot of discussion. But what you're saying is that Weghorst is going to haul. Sorry.
Yeah, that must be what I'm saying.
Yeah, you've just said how they can't do anything moving forward, so Weghorst is guaranteed to haul. Captain Weghorst for next week. Cool. Again, we'll move on to captaincy in a bit before we jump too far into the rabbit hole. So next game to talk about is Chelsea versus Brentford. Now, before we talk about Chelsea, Brentford, Christian Eriksen came in and scored for Denmark. It was a wonderful thing. Not really for your FPL, who cares about that? But for football in general, it was a really heartwarming moment.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Came in at half-time and scored with his first touch. And bearing in mind, that's his first touch for his national team since his cardiac incident at the Euros last summer. So it's fantastic to see. And yeah, what a moment it was.
Yeah, I know he didn't start for you on the free hit, but we love Christian Eriksen. And I would love him to be an FPL asset for this run-in. Unfortunately, Brentford have Chelsea, West Ham, a single in 33 with Watford, then Tottenham, Man U. So they're just not investable at the moment at all. But we love you, Christian Eriksen. We want you to be good. It's just maybe not for this season. Maybe next season you're an option, but not right now.
Depends. I think he's only on a 6-month contract, isn't he? So it depends where he is beyond this season. So watch this space.
Yeah, watch this space indeed. We'll get on to Everton soon, don't worry. Next team to speak about, I think, are probably the most investable team right now, and that's Chelsea. Aside from Liverpool, obviously, but Chelsea at the moment, they've got loads of games to be rearranged. So it looks like they'll probably double in 36 and 37. And their fixtures are looking really good. If you look at the FTR, the fixture difficulty rating, they've only got 1 red fixture, and that's against Man United. So I think Chelsea are a team we need to be targeting for this run-in. I've got Rudiger. I'm certainly going to be bringing in James. And special mention to Kai Havertz, who, since Matt jinxed it, is in the form of his life.
I'm still torn. I want to get him in, but I feel like if I do, he's not going to do anything. But at the same time, that will also hurt everyone else that is probably going to be bringing him in. So I can imagine a lot of people will be targeting him with the form that he's in and the fixtures they've got coming up. Like you say, this run of fixtures they've got now are almost without any, like, the announced doubles that are to come, because obviously, like we say, they've got lots of fixtures still to play. And when you throw in the fact that they're still in the FA Cup and they're still in the Champions League, it's such a good looking run. The only risk will be rotation as you get into those last few weeks of the season, when they'll probably be targeting the Cup, targeting the Champions League. Because, I mean, if you look at the table, it's pretty much sewn up 3rd place now. They're 5 points ahead of Arsenal. So there's still that potential that they could be overtaken. But you've got to imagine they've sewn up a top 4 finish now, so they're going to be targeting your Champions Leagues and your FA Cups. So you could have that risk there of rotation.
Yeah, and I think that rotation risk means that Thiago Silva, while he's starting most games, isn't necessarily a good option at the moment, just because he's the most likely to be rotated in the back line. Attacking wise, Mason Mount, before injury, started, I think, 9 of the last 10, the only one he didn't being in the Cup. Could be a consistent option. His ceiling isn't as high as Havertz, but he's consistent. In his last 10 games, it's 6 assists and 1 goal. And we know he can pull a hat-trick in and he can be on penalties. Could he be an option?
He's definitely an option, 100%. Like you say, he's cheaper than Havertz. He's a creative player. He makes things happen. He's definitely one that you can look at. Depends on obviously how you're going with your other Chelsea assets. If you're like us and you're probably doubling up defensively, it only leaves you room for one other. Then you're on a bit of a coin toss really as to whether you go for like a Mount or a Havertz, or if you're really feeling fruity or stupid, you could go for Lukaku, but just don't do that. Just don't.
I've also seen a couple of people mention Edouard Mendy as well, which I hate. I don't want to spend nearly that much on a goalkeeper. And he's the same price as Rudiger and James. But is there something to be said because of his lack of rotation risk?
I don't necessarily think there is a lack of rotation risk. I think, especially as you get into those deep, like the deep end, at the end of this season, there's always a possibility that Kepa comes in for a couple of league games and Mendy's saved for the cup games, your Champions League semi-finals, anything like that. So I don't necessarily think he's nailed on. And like you say, he's over 6 million for a goalkeeper, which when you can spend that much on James or Rudiger, there's only one winner for me.
Yeah. I mean, if we were going to rate the Chelsea assets, I think Reece James has got to be top.
Yeah.
Then probably I would say Rudiger second, but that's because I think defenders are better. Then I would say Havertz and Mount are probably number 3 and 4. Have you got similar thoughts, or would you do it differently?
No, I think that is exactly what I'd go for as well. Like you say, you got Silva in there as well. But obviously, there's always that risk of rotation with him with his age. Chalobah is obviously another one that's been coming in and out the side, as well as even like Christensen, because they've got so many centre-half options. If he was fit, I'd say Chilwell would be up there as well.
Yeah, we wish Chilwell was fit, but that's just not happening at the moment. Next game to speak about then is Leeds versus Southampton. Now, Southampton in a bit of a rut. Leeds probably safe now. They've got that win, so they can probably go to the beach. But Leeds blank in 33. So despite having 2 really good games in 31 and 32, I don't think we can be looking at Leeds assets at the moment. Leeds look like they've turned a corner, but did you have any thoughts on them?
I agree. Yeah, it looks like they're probably going to be safe, but I mean, a couple of bad results and you're pulled right back into it. So they've got to stay sharp. I read yesterday that Bamford is likely to be out for another 6 weeks after his latest injury. So obviously that's another massive disappointment for him. And like I said on the last pod, it's probably just put this season behind you and come back stronger next year. Obviously Rafinha is the main one that most people will have when you're talking about Leeds, but he just seems to be missing too many big chances for me. Like their XG since Marsh has come in has been over 2 per game. They're making chances, but they're just not burying them. I mean, you'd like to think that at some point, if you're making those chances, something will come off for someone, but nothing really shouts at me that I want to bring in.
Yeah, agreed. And the same really for Southampton. I know I've still got Broja through stay of execution, and I'll probably be holding him, but I don't think there's anyone else at Southampton that I'd be interested in buying, especially given the run they've got.
No, same here. I've still got Broja, like you say. They've been like the surprise package of the last few weeks. They look so good, and then they've just all of a sudden lost 3 in a row to some poor teams as well, including Watford in their last game. So, yeah, that sort of turned me off the idea of getting any other Southampton assets in. Basically, since you convinced me to get James Ward-Prowse in on my free hit.
You're welcome. Yeah, again, I think Southampton are a bit of an avoid at the moment. They've got Chelsea in 32 as well, so just a bit of a no-go right now. Wolves, the next team to speak about, and I feel very similarly to Southampton. Their form's just gone off a cliff. They capitulated against Leeds. I've still got Ait-Nouri, but he's going to be my transfer out this week. Well, one of my transfers out this week. If you look at their fixtures, they've blank in 33. So I think long term, there's just not really anything here for Wolves. I know you've got Sarr, so what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll be keeping Sarr in, but that's purely because Ramsdale's now the keeper. He's not going to be starting at the moment. So then there's no real, it's not like an urgent get out. I've still got Jimenez, so he'll be coming out purely because of that suspension. And I think that he's just been so inconsistent recently. And at that price, I could just downgrade him to someone to spend that money elsewhere because, as we've said all season, strikers just are underperforming. So there's no real need for any Wolves players at the moment for me. Like I say, I'll keep Sarr, but he'll be bench fodder for me now.
Yeah. A more interesting team to talk about, I think, are Aston Villa. Because if you look at the fixtures, they've got Wolves, then Spurs, then they blank in 33, but then it's Leicester, and then they've got Norwich, Burnley, Palace. And they've got 2 games to be rescheduled. One of those is against Liverpool, but the other is against someone easier. I can't remember who. Villa at the moment,
that would be the Liverpool one, would be the easy one.
I just don't really have anything to come back at you for.
Too early.
Yeah, it's far too early in the morning for this. The other one, I can't. Well, come back to me. I'll figure that out. But I think Villa are a really interesting team. So I've still got Coutinho, and I've still got Luca Digne, and now he's over his injury. I think I'm going to hold Digne, and I can't believe I'm saying this. I was so adamant I'm going to bring him out, but I've just got another problem that I need to deal with more. So I think Luca Digne is going to get a stay of execution on my side for another few weeks.
I mean, it's a bold strategy, Colin. Let's see if it pays off. Yeah, I've still got Coutinho like you, and he's not going anywhere at the moment purely because, like you, I've got other problems that I want to deal with. They haven't got the best run of fixtures and they blank in 33, so he can be benched in and out as and when I need him. He'll probably start this week against Wolves because, like we said, they're very inconsistent. But I wouldn't, now that I've got rid of Dean, I wouldn't be bringing him back in. But it's like you say, it's down to what your situation is and what your problems are that you need to address beforehand. So it's not the worst idea in the world. Now that you've got him and I won't, he'll probably haul.
Yeah, I was going to say, now no one else has him. I think it's a bit of a differential. And all of the attacking threat is still there. So I'm trying to convince myself that keeping him is a good idea because I've already decided I will. But yeah, I think I wouldn't be buying any Villa assets, but I also think there are good holds at the moment.
No, I agree with that. I think that pretty much sums it up for how I feel about them as well.
Cool. The next game and the last game on Saturday to talk about is interesting because both of the teams are good to talk about right now. And it's Manchester United at home versus Leicester away. United are just a laughing stock at the moment. I don't think they're investable unless you're going to be free hitting in 33, which we both are, because they're at home to Norwich. And admittedly, they're also away to Liverpool, but that home to Norwich match is looking quite tasty for them. So what are your thoughts and your plans around Man United?
It's a tough one. Like you say, that 33 double, purely because one of them is Norwich at home, makes it seem very tempting. And like you say, a lot of people will be free hitting for that one. I'm sort of almost talking myself out of free hitting in 33. But we'll talk about that a little bit more later. So if you are free hitting in 33, then you'll probably triple up on United assets purely because one of them is Norwich, and you're hoping that that is enough to make up for what will probably be a disappointment against Liverpool. So obviously, if you're tripling up, you're probably, and it's a free hit, Ronaldo's probably going to be in there purely because it's Norwich. Then other than that, it's tricky. Fernandes as well, but he's struggled in recent weeks. The one I'd be looking at is probably Sancho.
I think that's too rogue though. I think Ronaldo is going to play every game now. They're out of everything else. And in my free hits, I'm probably going to have Ronaldo. And I'm probably going to captain him. Just because it's boring, but I think, like you, lots of people are talking themselves out of the free hit in 33, and I need to make up ground. So I'm almost certainly going to be using it then and just getting a team full of doublers. Another team that I'm going to be targeting quite heavily is Leicester, who actually, despite injury crisis, Vardy aside, they look like they've got everyone back. So Castagna's back, Fofana's back, and suddenly Leicester look investable again at both ends of the pitch. Schmeichel only 4.9 as a goalkeeper, especially under free hits. I think that's a really, really good option, as well as Castagna as well moving forward. Always have a special place in our hearts for James Justin after the wonders of last season. But then moving forwards, on a free hit, I will almost certainly be having Ian Nacho as well.
Come on. Even if Vardy's back by them.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. I was still having
What about the other one, obviously, to talk about? I had Harvey Barnes last week, but James Maddison as well is the one that obviously will be tempting a lot of people, because they have probably got the most appealing double in 33 of Newcastle and Everton. Admittedly, they're both away, but Newcastle seem to have just plateaued a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how they got in the next couple of weeks. But that Everton fixture as well will be a real tempter for anyone that's wanting to get those Leicester assets in for their double.
Yeah, Maddison versus Barnes is very interesting. I saw a Twitter thread saying Maddison, his shots are mainly from about 18 yards or so, whereas Barnes is picking up positions inside the box. But I also think that while Barnes is probably more consistently returning, Maddison has a higher ceiling. So for that double, I think a captain on James Maddison could be a really fun pick to look at. And I think Leicester are very investable in all areas, really. Obviously, Ian Nacho up front, Castagna and Schmeichel defensively, then Maddison and Barnes are both good options for the run-in, I think.
Yeah, I think that, like you say, it's almost difficult because there's almost like there's too many options. So you're always, and like we've said this season, it seems like if you fall on the wrong side of a 50-50 call, it's going to punish you.
Yeah. I mean, if we're looking at the options and ranking them, I would probably say Maddison at the top, Barnes second, and then Schmeichel. And then above all of them, Ian Nacho.
I was going to say, I was waiting for this. Why is he not at the top of your list?
I just love him. He's such a good player. Seriously, though, I think Maddison, because of the upside, is a slightly more attractive option for me because I've got to make up grounds. If I was playing defensively and I was in the top 30k or so, I'd be going Barnes. But because I need to make up grounds, I think Maddison with the higher ceiling is just a bit more of a tempting option.
No, I agree. And his set pieces as well is the main thing for him, isn't it? So he's always deadly from those.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. A couple more teams to speak about then. And the next game is on a Sunday, which is West Ham versus Everton. An interesting game. Let's talk about Everton first. You can say it. Go on.
No. I refuse.
Watch this space. So call me crazy. I think we can have a serious chat about investing in Everton.
You're crazy.
Anthony Gordon is a really... Is it Anthony Gordon? Gordon in midfield. I don't know if his first name's Anthony. I may have made that up.
It is Anthony.
Anthony Gordon in midfield. Really, really cheap option at 4.4. I think you could go worse than investing in him. And if you look at Everton's fixtures, okay, there's no real clean sheets in there. So defensively, I don't think they're investable at all. But I think Gordon, as an enabling midfielder with the double this week, you could do worse.
Yeah, you definitely could do worse. He is an exciting young player. He's one that's really come to the forefront under Lampard. He does have this track record of trying to bring through young English players, which is commendable. But like you say, he's probably an enabler at that price. Yes, they've got the double this week of West Ham and Burnley, which isn't the worst double. But then after that, it's Man United, Leicester, Liverpool, Chelsea. So, I mean, I am not going anywhere near them.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be part of my transfer plans, but he is one I would consider if I had an extra transfer left. Yeah, I also think, unfortunately, there's not really much investability in West Ham. Their next three are Everton, Brentford, and Burnley, but they've got Burnley on the double game week and they've only got a single. Then three of the next four are Chelsea, Arsenal, and City. So maybe as a short-term punt, we could go back in for Antonio, but I just don't see, with your Europa League tie as well, West Ham as being investable either at the moment.
No, unfortunately I do agree with you. The only person that would be tempting to me if he's back is Jared Bowen for the next three. But like you say, we've got our Europa League tie next week. So that's the first leg. And then obviously, so that's sandwiched either side of the Everton game. And that's now that we're pretty much dead and buried in that top four race, everything for us is going to be on our Europa League campaign. I mean, let's be honest. If we get through the next round of the Europa League, which is possible against Lyon, we'll probably be facing Barcelona, and what a prospect that is!
Mark Noble at the Spotify Camp Nou. Yeah, that's going to be awesome. Yeah, I think you'll probably beat Lyon. I know you're going to the match at the London Stadium as well.
Yeah, certainly am. Managed to pick up a ticket yesterday. They sold out initially before they got through to general sale. They were snapped up very quickly, but Lyon didn't take their full allocation. So one of my friends, actually Jamie from the Pretty Bubbles podcast, is a season ticket holder. And through him, they could have, with those reallocation of tickets, he managed to get me one. So yeah, I am off next Thursday.
Exciting. Cool. So a few more games to speak about, and let's speak about the teams in them. So Spurs, Newcastle. I think with Spurs, Harry Kane is the one to own for the running. I think even though Son got 2 goals, I just don't think he looks quite up to his top form at the moment. I think Harry Kane and Kulusevski are still the ones to own from Spurs at the moment. I'm currently tripled up on Spurs, but that's because I've got Bentancur as a 4.9 enabler in midfield. So you don't have Kane. What are your thoughts on them at the moment? Are you scared?
Yes, very. He's the one that I am most worried about. You look at his last 5 game weeks, 15, 11, 13, 14, 13. Like this is the consistency from a striker that we've been begging for all season. My issue is I've gone so big at the back that I've got all of these players plus Salah. It's basically impossible for me to bring Kane in at the moment. So I'm just praying that Newcastle can keep him quiet, which I'm not most convinced about. Son is the other worry as well because it's at home. So Son has scored 13 goals this season and 10 of them have been at home. So he's much better at home than he is away. Whereas Kane has only got 4 at home and 8 away. So, but then again, he's always up for an assist, isn't he? So it's so hard for me to be excited about this fixture because I'll just be dreading the inevitability of the Son and Kane returns while I'm just sitting here with Kulusevski.
Make fantasy fun again. Don't worry about it.
True. Yeah. I've also currently got Doherty, but I think he's coming out this week because I've got to get my boy Reece James back in.
That's true. Reece James is a must for the running, and we'll discuss that in a moment. But Spurs, if you look at their upcoming games, Newcastle, then Villa, Brighton, Brentford, Leicester. So they don't double in 33, but their games are looking quite good. I think they're going to score goals in them. Then they've got Liverpool away in that, but then they've got Burnley at home afterwards. So, and I think they've got one game to be rearranged. So Spurs, I think, are investable at the moment. I think the only one I'd be targeting would be Harry Kane. Anyone else that you'd move heaven and earth to get in aside from Son? I don't think there is, right?
No, I don't think so. You could always fall into the Sergio Reguilon trap again, but I'm certainly not doing that.
We're done with that. We've flirted. It's happened. It's like Coutinho. Like, no.
Yeah, so no, I think it's all going to come down to Son, Kane, Kulusevski, and maybe a defender if you're feeling it. But that's pretty much it from a Spurs front.
Yeah. But let's talk about Newcastle then, because their running looks very, very difficult. They've got an okay double in 33, but that aside, they've still got Liverpool, City, Arsenal, Tottenham, Wolves all to play. So I don't think Newcastle are really investable, unfortunately, at the moment. Chris Woods, if you think he can pick up some of the form he did at the end of last season, but yeah, I just wouldn't go near them with a barge pole at the moment, right?
No, not really. Like you say, and I say this as someone who currently has Willock and St Maximan in his team. So unfortunately, I've got other fires that I need to fight. So they're probably going to stay in, but they're probably going to be bench fodder, which is unfortunate. But it's just the way the cards have fallen, unfortunately, for me.
Yeah, I would say so. Looking at the last two clubs then, and we'll rattle through them. Crystal Palace is next because Palace are very much an up and down side at the moment. Their games aren't great, but they're not awful. And from 33, they've got Newcastle, Leeds, Southampton, and Watford. I unfortunately don't think from an FPL standpoint, maybe I get Conor Gallagher in from 34. Is my thinking, because then Leeds, Southampton, Watford, Villa, all in a row. I think that could be quite fun. But other than that, I don't see anyone at Palace that I'm going to be even considering really for the run-in.
See, this is where I was going to come back to earlier. So they've got quite a nice run of fixtures. They were obviously very impressive. They demolished Everton 4-0 in the FA Cup last week. And they had a front four in that game of Elise, Zaha, Eze, and Mateta, which is an exciting, young, quick, skillful front four. And I heard that before that game, Elise, Zaha, and Eze had only been on the pitch in the Premier League together for 23 minutes all season. Obviously, Eze coming back from his big Achilles injury, so that was a big thing for him. And I think that front four is a very exciting front four. So my other option to bring in up front was Mateta, because I think he's going to be getting chances fed to him left, right, and centre by that three behind him.
That's very bold considering they've got Christian Benteke waiting in the wings.
Yeah, but he hasn't been playing much. He's had, let me look at his last few games. He's played 21 minutes since game week 23.
Maybe then. Maybe it's an option moving forward. I'm uninspired. I think most of the goals are coming from midfield and Conor Gallagher and Zaha as well, to be fair. But I'm uninspired. I just think Palace, there's something about them that just screams mid-table, and they've got nothing to play for the end of the season. I think they'll be on the beach. So I would probably be doing a hard avoid on Palace.
The other thing is they've got Chelsea in the FA Cup quarterfinals, so they could save themselves for that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And last team to speak about them before we go on to our plans is Arsenal, who have good fixtures coming up between now and the end of the season. I think with their run, they're basically nailed on for fourth. I currently own Ramsdale, Saka, and Lacazette. What are your thoughts on Arsenal at the moment?
I agree with you. I think they're very, very much a team that everyone should have in their thoughts when it comes to FPL assets. I've got Ramsdale and Saka as well. I haven't got Lacazette. I haven't got a third Arsenal player at the moment, but it's definitely something I'd be considering. Martinelli obviously is another shout. Smith Rowe is still in there. And even Ødegaard has looked very impressive in recent weeks, but he not so much on FPL returns. But I think Saka at the moment is almost a must-have.
Yeah, he's really good at the moment. I think Martinelli just doesn't have the end product, and he's got that really strong competition in Smith Rowe. I actually think Ødegaard is the other midfielder to go for. But Saka, for a 6.6 million player, he's on, I think, 9 goals and 6 assists for the season. So he and Rafinha are the standouts for the season in that bracket. And 11 points in the last game. I think Saka is where you want to be putting your money at the moment.
Completely. I'd be interested to see. In fact, let's find out exactly what his ownership is at the moment. It's only 32%, which surprises me.
I'm guessing a lot of dead teams, but
that's always the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Saka is an easy own. Ramsdale I've got as well because I think he's a great goalkeeper to own. But yeah, I will probably actually that pivots nicely because let's look at our transfer plans for the week. So I have about 0.1 in the bank. So my plan, and I'm even willing to do it right now, just to make sure there's no price rises, is to, and because neither of these guys play in the internationals, is to move out Eight Nuri and Lacazette to bring in Reece James and Weghorst. So Lacazette's obviously freeing that money up. And I was thinking about moving out Dino instead of Eight Nuri, but I think he's actually more likely to be playing than Eight Nuri is at the moment. So though I'll happily burn a 4 for those transfers, considering Weghorst plays twice, and if he returns once, then that pays for the transfers on its own, and sets me up long term as well, because they're two players I'd want to own for the run-in rather than two players I wouldn't. What are your thoughts?
No, that makes sense. I think that's a pretty solid -4, which is probably what I'll be taking as well for this week. So I'm currently sat here with 1.7 in the bank. Obviously, Jimenez is coming out for me, so it will probably be Weghorst in there. I was trying to figure out if there's a way I can squeeze Kane in, but it's just not financially possible. Because if I was to get Kane in, I would have to lose over 3 million somewhere else. I mean, it is possible, but the question is it really worth it? So, yes. especially as I want to be getting Reece James in, but is it better to get Kane in this week and then save James for next week or something like that? Because there's always that option, the possibility that he doesn't necessarily start as he's still coming back from this latest injury knock. So that's my thinking for the next couple of days, and I've got to make this decision as to whether it's worth taking that big hit somewhere else to get Kane in. It would probably mean I'd have to downgrade one of my defenders, which is why I'm not keen on it, because I haven't got that much to cut elsewhere.
Yeah, and we want to be going big at the back, really. If we're looking at our teams then, who is your captaincy going to be on? Is it Salah?
Yeah, it's 100% Salah for me. The more interesting thing will be who's going to be vice, because I feel like there's a rotation risk this week. With the amount of fixtures Liverpool have got coming up with the Champions League and the FA Cup, and obviously international duty having just happened, and he's still away with Egypt at the moment. So that's
got a game tonight.
Yeah,
but
I would like to think he plays. He tends to almost always play unless he's injured. So
yeah,
who would your vice be on then?
So my advice is on Kane. Like, keep it simple. I'm actually considering putting the armbands on Kane, just in general, depending on how knackered Salah looks tonight. And I'll be watching the game intently, especially if he doesn't if Egypt don't qualify for the World Cup and they lose to Senegal again. What's that going to do mentally? Salah hasn't scored from open play in a while, and he's just looking a little bit knackered. I would potentially be tempted by Trent, but he's yellow at the moment, so I just don't think it's worth the risk this week. But yeah, I think Salah is the likely option if I'm looking at captaincy. I've not quite decided on that yet. I think Weghorst, if you look at the stats, even if he gets 4 points with no returns in the next 2 games, it could be a potential safety option, but I just can't bring myself to do it. So yeah, it's going to be Salah or Kane for me.
Yeah, I think that's the most obvious. I mean, I'm looking now at Salah's stats against Watford in the Premier League. He's played them 7 times and scored 9 goals and got 3 assists.
Yeah.
So that's 12 returns in 7 games. Like, you'd have to be crazy not to play him.
Yeah, I think you need to be playing Mo Salah, if not captaining him. Let's very quickly touch on then your strategy for the rest of the season, because you mentioned you were maybe not going to free hit in 33.
Yeah, obviously there's a couple of weeks for me to really decide this, but it doesn't massively excite me as a double. Like, when you look at most of the teams that are doubling, Brighton have got a terrible double. Arsenal have got Southampton, but then they've got Chelsea. Leicester have got the best double. Man U have got Norwich, but then they've got Liverpool. And then Southampton double, but that includes Arsenal. It's like, and Newcastle's another doubler, but none of them really excite me as a big double. Burnley, again, doesn't excite me. Waiting to see what fixtures are announced for later in the season, like a 37 potentially. And I'm thinking maybe build up my team to bench boost in 36 and then free hit 37, dependent on what transfers are announced for that week.
Yeah, and depending on what games are announced in that week. I think as a way of me catching up to the crowds, free hit and 33 still makes sense. But I'm looking at the team I would have. It's like triple Leicester, probably triple United, and a couple from Burnley, and maybe Salah or something like that. So again, it's not the most inspiring team. So we'll have to wait and see. What I will say, though, is that I held off free hitting in 30, and it was only Son that really damaged me. If he hadn't have gone off in the last couple of minutes, then I would have come out really quite well. It's only because he got that goal it really hurt my rank. I am tempted by holding the free hit, but also I've been planning around the free hit for a while, been planning my team to be bench boosting for 36. So it's a bit of a wait and see moment for me as well. But I think I'm still looking at free hit and 33 as it stands. And also, it'll be quite fun to go with James Maddison captain for that double.
I dare you.
I'm almost certainly going to be doing it. So
excellent. I'm looking forward to your rank slipping even more.
Well, that's where we are. That's our review of the week and what we can expect moving forward. As usual, you can find us on Twitter at Big at the Back. Come and talk to us. We love getting the chance to chat to you all. And Matt, you're looking forward to the West Ham game. I'm sure you're going to be speaking about it on the Pretty Bubbles podcast.
Yep, so I will be recording a new episode of the Pretty Bubbles podcast tomorrow afternoon. So check us out there if you've got any interest on West Ham more specifically. You can find me on Twitter at Higgins92. Tom is at TomMadden92. And like he says, come and get involved with the chat. Any terrible opinions that are tweeted from the from the Big at the Back account will probably be Tom.
And believe me, there's a lot of terrible opinions. I wouldn't say they're exclusive to me.
No, true. I mean, I've got the gold standard with the Havertz tweet so far.
I think you're winning at the moment. Brilliant. Well, we will look forward. We'll be back next week with another episode, looking at the game week and how it's gone, and looking forward to speaking to you all then.